Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining the Power of 8 at 8. And we do have, Eileen and I have Cynthia Sue Larson back with us. How are you, Cynthia?
Awesome. Glad to be alive.
Literally, right?
Yeah. Everybody loved your last visit over, so we wanted to have you back because there's plenty to talk about. We'll never run out of things to talk about.
Never.
That's right. Shifting realities, right?
Constantly. And speaking of being alive, your last video was quite impressive, if that was the last one, because I felt bad for you getting a letter from somebody saying, but I thought you died. So can you share that with our listeners on exactly what happened?
Sure. Yeah, this is really a huge event in my life. As you know, I've been studying this phenomenon of alive again for about 20 years now. Always on the outside of it, like Nelson Mandela, people understand that the importance of the Mandela Effect came from people noticing that he was alive again after people had thought he died. Well, of course, I brought that up in the 1990s in my book Reality Shifts because I noticed that Larry Hagman had died, and he died again. So he's not a big item on anybody's lists because people are like, what are you talking about? That was a long time ago. It was just one of the early ones. With Captain Kangaroo and Jane Goodall, who I think she's still alive, but a lot of people remember she died. So anyway, but to be on the inside of this experience was astonishing. So yes, that was my most recent blog and YouTube video. And
was it worrying? Did it worry you when you got that letter?
No, actually, no, it didn't, because I was already aware that that was a threshold point. I knew, but I had not publicly revealed that I had almost died around January 2017. I knew it, and I told my parents, told my sister, told my children, a couple of close friends. There was a psychic friend of a friend who said, is Cynthia okay? Because I think she's just about dead. And I admitted to those two, you're right. So I was honest with just a handful of people, didn't want to panic anyone. But what had happened is I had gotten I caught a cold that was very serious, and it went kind of into pneumonia. It became very, very bad. And I was going downhill pretty rapidly, but fortunately there was a turnaround. But I'm aware that was, when you get that close to death and you know it, because there's stress in your life, which there was, and a number of factors going on. Well, to me, it was really obvious. Like, that was a close call. I knew it. And so then what subsequently happened this year, just before Easter, I got an email from someone I'd never heard from. And this gentleman's name was Steve Boucher. And he told me in the email the effect that basically he didn't know how to say such a thing, but basically he remembered that I had died, and he was grateful that that's not the case, obviously. But he gave the circumstances that he'd been aware that a couple years ago, right after the first Gaia interview with Regina Meredith that I had done for Gaia TV, he said he saw that, and then shortly after he went to my Facebook page just to check in, because he'd been already watching my videos and so forth, and he was shocked to see that there was a post by my husband saying, after a long illness, Cynthia has passed away. So he left his condolences on my Facebook page. This is my Facebook page, this is not a prank. It's not a fake Facebook page. You understand?
Not a hoax. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people have said, well, it must have been some hoax. No. It was my Facebook page. Like when you leave your computer logged on to Facebook and someone comes along and says, I better let people know, that's what had happened. And that's what would happen. So it was very realistic. Time frame was exact. Cause of death was exact. So I told Steve, you know what? You're right. I probably would. I think that did happen, actually. So I'm validating it instead of the usual thing of the rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. Instead, I'm saying, I believe you. I believe you. We're in a
That's
quantum
the first
reality.
one ever in media where somebody validates their previous death. So that's a real big
Yes.
thing. That's like a
Yeah,
first.
that gives me chills to think
Yeah.
about it. So you had the
Isn't
same
that-
event, it just turned out a little bit differently.
Thank goodness. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people
thank
are
goodness.
grateful. I'm grateful.
Me too. Yeah.
He's grateful because you're still here.
Yeah.
Your husband's grateful. But you know what? I don't know if you caught the little news blurbs a year ago this time about Berkeley, California, but I bet you are up on this, where there was a handful of scientists who were studying, do we quantum jump into a new lifetime every time we die until the body can jump no more? So at that point, when you're 100 years old and you're on your deathbed saying goodbye, it can't make the jump. You get, obviously, go to heaven or get recycled into a new body, a new baby's body.
Are
right?
you saying like a traditional reincarnation or back and repeat the same exact life? How are you?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm leaving it
was he
open to the
saying that?
listener.
Oh, okay.
They specify. Those darn scientists never specify the details, do they?
So how do you explain, how would you explain, Cynthia, when people seem to
Wow.
have an individual experience, like he experienced you passing away. I didn't, I mean,
I didn't.
it's a very individual thing, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, we really are experiencing individual realities, and that there's a recent news story about that too. Just amazing synchronicity, just in the last couple of months, which is this study that was done with the double slit experiment from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
That's another video of yours, the one
Yes.
right before the last one, right?
Yes, because that was the other huge news.
Can you
And then,
explain it to us so we understand it better?
Okay. Well, I should just do a quick summary, a recap of the double slit experiment, which is the most elegant experiment in all of science, lots of people think so. It's not unanimous, but a lot of people agree it's one of the most elegant because it's just this rich cornucopia of information that keeps coming through this very simple experiment. It's such as future decisions can affect the past. That recently came through. Now we've got a new piece of information which shows that objective reality apparently does not exist, which is, I think those of us experiencing Mandela Effect are intimately familiar with this, but it looks bizarre to scientists that are just seeing it for the first time. And so I'll go back to the double slit experiment to explain why they're now saying that two observers can see two different realities.
Yeah. Why are they seeing it but not Mandela affected? Are they secretly Mandela affected? So they're studying it?
Well, the experiment that's been conducted so far only involves two particle, kind of like detectors. So it's really equipment. It's not yet actual people, but that's just it will get there. I'm sure in a short amount of time, we'll have actual people doing this exact thing where they look at the same exact event at the same time and see two different things, which most scientists would have said was impossible, but now they're recognizing obviously it's happening, so they can't call it impossible anymore. So the double slit experiment, the simplest version of it would be there's a photon emitter just emitting one little quantum particle, which is a photon, a little particle of light that goes, that passes through one or the other of two long, tall, skinny slits, kind of like doorways in this sort of a obstruction device in between the particle emitter and the screen. And so the whole purpose of the setup was to determine for once and for all, are these so-called quantum particles, are they actually particles, or is it true that they're more like a wave and that they're moving like a wave? And unfortunately, it didn't clear that question up. It just created lots more questions, because what happens is when scientists fire that single photon through two slits, and they just have the screen set up in the background, and they don't have any particle detectors to determine which slit the particle went through, the photon, what they get is a diffraction pattern of interference that looks like when you throw two pebbles into a pond and you get the ripples that interact with each other, and you can tell two pebbles went in. You get that pattern from one photon. So it looks like one photon went through two slits at the same time. So that's
Did they get that before in the 1940s when they did this? Was it the 40s?
Yeah. This is an old, amazing effect. And then just in the last year or so, they did this whole experiment with a delayed choice component. So a future decision affects the past. That absolutely works. Quantum physics continues to shake everyone's assumptions about reality. I mean, it's just never ending, apparently. And this new study absolutely shows that two observers looking at this kind of a setup will look at the same exact moment, the same exact time, get two very different observations, and they're both right, which is what those of us studying the Mandela Effect have been saying all along. Some of us. So.
Yeah, for a very long time. Neville Goddard. Have you ever listened to Neville Goddard?
A little bit, yeah. I love what I've seen. Yeah.
He now is saying, of course, he's not here, right? And I'm suddenly listening to him from the past, right? Maybe the 1950s. And he's saying, go to the end and create it backwards. And I'm like, wow, you were really ahead of your time, Neville. Because he's saying, if you go to the end from the present, which is your field of now, your field of power is in the now. So you imagine what you want at the end, that will create your past so that it all lines up. So all your ducks line up in a row, but you start with the end. You don't start with the past to develop the present, to develop the future. You do it opposite. You go to the end and work your way back.
One of the inventors of, yes, it does. And one of the inventors of calculus, Leibniz, he believed in optimalism, and he was one of the founders of the whole everything that we call science. When we look for something that's elegant as a theory, we're using the principles that Leibniz first devised for us to determine these things. And he had a philosophy that there's an optimization going on, and it's very similar to this starting, with the answer. In other words, that in some ways we know what's best, and we're able to go there. So absolutely. Yeah, there's something. Cool. Some of these people are hundreds of years ago, and they seem tuned in.
They seem to get it. Or now we're hearing it. Like, is that a Mandela effect? Did he not say that in the 1950s, and I'm hearing it now? There's no way to prove anymore what was from my past. I may be creating that now in my future by looking forward. I might be creating those messages that I'm getting from Neville Goddard. I don't know.
That's and then there's the whole idea that we hear that our higher self is our future self. I mean, I've heard this before. So it gets very convoluted when we're stuck in this sort of linear time, and then we have to try to imagine this other stuff,
Yes.
Well, in 1985, when I started mass communication, journalism, and broadcasting, they taught us in communication that if you have two individuals watch something happen, a crime, somebody robs a store, and you interview them, you will get two different stories. So they knew back then that it was consciousness. It was the psychology of the individual coloring the story with their own perception, their own biases, their own prejudices, would create a slightly different story. You'd never get the same story twice.
But what is so interesting, and I'm glad you brought it up, Eileen, is that there's been this presumption or assumption on the part of most people that there is this one foundational truth, this one, this foundational fundamental reality that everyone should be agreeing to, that's subjective, that's out there. And now we're looking at this and saying, maybe not, maybe there are lots of possible realities, and we have free will to a degree that we see in spiritual writings, but a lot of people had never fully recognized what the import of that might be, what the responsibility of that might be. So.
To the individual. So that means some people can choose. Sorry, close your ears, people who don't like to hear anything fearful. Some people can choose the apocalypse and the Antichrist and demons, and they can experience that because that's what they're choosing. That's what they're choosing to believe is happening with things like the Mandela Effect and this crazy world we're in, right? And then the other of us on this side of the fence, we're choosing New Earth. We're choosing the Golden Age. We're choosing 5D, where we live in symbiotic compassion, cooperation, goodwill, the whole 9 yards.
Right. And I'd like to say that this is not just airy-fairy stuff. I've actually had experiences of what people might call bilocation when I've been daydreaming, and apparently I've had very real effects in physical reality with witnesses that know me quite well, observing me doing and being exactly where I was daydreaming that I was. This is how real this stuff is. So one example was when it was a cold morning and my daughters were quite young. I needed to go wake them up, but I was still in that, when you don't want to quite get out of bed yet and you're just thinking about it. So in my head, I'm imagining like, okay, well, I really should get up out of bed, walk down the hall, open up the curtain in my daughter's bedroom, which is too heavy and big for them to lift, and say, good morning, girls, time to wake up, because they don't wake up unless I do that. So I'm thinking that. And then I hear kind of like this pitter patter. I hear voices, I hear pitter patter of little feet. They're coming tentatively toward me. They're like, Mommy, where are you? And then, what are you doing back in bed? And I said, what do you mean back in bed? And you saw me already? And they said, yes. I said, where was I? And they said, you came in our room and woke us up. So I walked down the hall and their curtain was up. There's no way they can lift it. They're both awake. They would never wake themselves up.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That is really cool.
That is. And the art statue, you went walking with friends, and then there was an art statue there, and then you walked with your friends and there wasn't. And your friends went, holy moly, where'd this art statue suddenly come from, right?
Yes, I've seen some large scale things that are just suddenly there that didn't used to be there. And that was originally on the cover of one of the first editions of the book Reality Shifts, which is that sundial sculpture, which I think is very symbolic that it is a sundial. And it had been, there was an inscription on this gigantic concrete sculpture, like 20 feet high, 20 feet across. It's not just a tiny little sundial, it's big. And not only that, it obscures a sculpture behind it. So when I was on a walk with my friends, and we used to be able to see this archer that had a bow and arrow, kind of like an indigenous huntsman, kind of primitive archer. You can't really see that sculpture now because the sundial is in the way. And I had just been talking to my friends about if they've ever seen reality shifts. They were saying they mostly noticed it in people. Like if they go on a trip for a few weeks and come back, people are different. Or, and they were saying that. And then suddenly right in front of us is this ginormous, huge sundial sculpture, like it had come out of nowhere. And it looked very old. It had an inscription on it that it was a gift from a sister city in Japan to the city of Berkeley. And so I did contact the harbor master to find out the history. And he said it had always been there. But I know that's not the case. My friends know that was not the case. So
you guys jumped together. How nice. Not alone. And then you went home and all your children and husbands and loved ones were just waiting for you.
Yes,
right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Isn't that how it usually goes, right?
Not always. Like how it goes sometimes. You're the only one that sees something, and then you don't want to say anything because you'll feel like the weirdo.
Well, thank goodness Sherry's real bold about that. She had this instance where she went to this restaurant, and the restaurant name had changed. So she asked the waitress, did your restaurant used to be spelled this way? I think it was Chewy's or something. Mm-hmm. It was the Chewy's. Change. Yeah, so she goes, no, it's funny you asked that because I had a dream that I drove to work and it was spelled the way you're saying. That's weird. Now, what do you think's happening with something like that? Do you think there's like some bleed over from that other reality and she's perceiving it as a dream, or what do you think?
I think sometimes we do share just these crossover realities because we're social animals, we're entangled with each other, then it's possible that we can all go together. And I've also had a restaurant decor situation where the entire decor suddenly had a pig theme everywhere. And so I went there with a friend who's allergic to pork. And I was so embarrassed. Like, I would never have brought you to this restaurant if I knew that everything was set up with pigs. Like, I'm so sorry.
Some of these changes are funny, just like that, though. That's hilarious. And it seems like it was individualized for that there was something to it. I mean, why would it be pigs? And then that's like her thing.
And of course, I asked the waiters and waitresses, have you changed the decor in the last month or two? No, it's always been
this way.
Yeah, right.
So I guess we're kind of like showing people how to laugh at it and how to just enjoy the journey and not expect things to always be the same.
that's what we're here to. That's what I love about the show that you're doing, because you really do encourage people to do that. So, and I share
have
your
fun with
spirit.
it.
Yes.
There's no danger there. There's nothing to fear, and it seems like if it will affect somebody too adversely, they just don't see it. So it's
Exactly.
weird. It's so micromanaged to a level that's just beyond human understanding. It seems like it's divinely orchestrated.
Yes, I've got exactly the same take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel that way. But that's the hard part to share with people, because we all have different ideas of divine, divinity, God, source, reincarnation, heaven, so that's where we kind of get stuck sometimes. We can tell that Jiffy changed to Jiff, but then we can't say why. We can share our opinions of why, but I mean, I'm not even sure that my opinions are true. I know Shane doesn't think his are particularly true. I don't know about you, Cynthia. Are your opinions like, well, they're good today, but tomorrow they might be different?
Yeah, that's why I like to ask, how good can it get, and not think that I know. I don't recommend people practice reality shifting like a magical practice, but rather always think of it as a spiritual practice, because I think it's important for us to recognize we're part of a bigger than human universe, much bigger than human. So
definitely. So death isn't even the end of the road. So even though you saw that alternate timeline play out, or somebody that saw it and talked to you about it, you ultimately know here you are,
I'm cool with it, because I've been looking at this for 20 years. And also I'm aware of people sort of appearing that never existed before. And some people say that's what I did in their realities. So, and I was able to tell a physicist that he never existed before, and he actually understood what I was talking about.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Talk about NPCs then. Are these like little player characters suddenly popping up on the scene, or are these real? I don't believe in NPCs. Everybody knows that. Who knows me? But are these just people from different timelines converging, but they didn't used to be there?
Okay, what does that stand for? I'm not sure.
Non-player character. So it's like when you play a video game and they set up these computer-controlled characters in the game. They're not another player you're playing. It's just part of the matrix.
They populate the world with them, but they don't necessarily have a role.
Yeah. Right. Background people, I think Dolores Cannon called them background people.
Background people.
My big thing right now, my current kick is pure heart reverence, and that means I see the spirit in everything. So I'm really not one of the fans of the matrix reality where it's artificially intelligent. I don't believe in that. I believe much more in God, divine source, whatever you want to call it. So even if it looks like there's a bit player that's not important, I don't think that that's really true. So, to me, there's reverence and there's beauty in every so-called character. So,
do you like bugs?
Even
like
animals,
you won't kill a bug?
Insects. Yeah.
Are you like this ant is divinely? Somebody gave that ant life. I'm not stepping on it. I'm gonna save that spider and throw it out a window.
I save spiders. Right. Yes. So it's much more this respect for life. I mean, I make mistakes and step on bugs too. I'm not perfect, but for the most part, I try to be the best I can be, and I think that's important. So the physicist I talked to, he understood. I was apologizing. Well, the way I met him, I don't know if I told you this before, but he was in the movie. It was a documentary about particle physics at the Large Hadron Collider, which now is at the center of all of this hullabaloo about the Mandela Effect. Like, are they causing it? They're evil. And so I'm in a room full of these physicists, because it was the premiere at UC Berkeley of the movie Particle Fever, about what they'd done at the Large Hadron Collider. And when I looked at the signs, well, first of all, I went to this event thinking that I didn't want to go. I don't like particle physics. It's like engineers of physics. No offense if anybody's listening who is a particle physicist. It's just that's not my thing. I like the theoretical side. I like the ideas. Whereas the particle physicists are much more, they're like the accountants of physics. They're looking more at the little, and they tend to be very materialistic. Have to be. It's particle physics. So I was wondering, why am I going to this? Like, why are my angels so insistent? Like, you have to go. I'm like, why? But then I see that there's a name on the table before the physicists come in, Dr. Yasunori Nomura. And it turns out that I had found, after I'd published Quantum Jumps, I wished that I'd included his research, but he never existed when I wrote the book, Quantum Jumps. Instead, I only had Raphael Busso, another another physicist at UC Berkeley. Now they've pretty much co-authored papers, but that was not true before. There was no existence of Yasunori Nomura anywhere
That
at all.
name, No More, it's kind of like a coincidence, Mr. No
Yeah,
More.
Nomura.
Right?
That's what I was thinking when you said that. You
Mr.
go back to the
Nomura.
other
Another
timeline, and he's
inside joke,
Nomura.
yeah.
Another inside joke from the Mandela Effect. So what did he say?
Yeah.
He's like, well, it's very possible that I wasn't here.
Yes. Well, to make up for it, every time I give a talk, I love his work. So I'm constantly talking about him and the papers he's done, and they're amazing. So I'm a big fan of it. I'll show diagrams that he put in his papers. And I told him that. So he said, let's have tea. So we met, we talked. He wanted a copy of Quantum Jumps. I told him you didn't used to exist. He understood. So because he deals with both the quantum and the macro scale. He's putting together relativity and the very small.
So maybe he's thinking theoretical, even though he's working on the minute.
He thinks big.
So let's ask you then, with Professor No More, Dr. No More. Could the Hadron Collider, with finding the boson Higgs particle, the God particle, have created a mini black hole over Switzerland that consumed the Earth and moved us en masse from the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy where Carl Sagan was convinced we were, to the Orion spur of the galaxy where Neil deGrasse Tyson and everybody else says we currently are? Is there anything to do with that 2012, 2013, oh dear, we might blow a little black hole on the Earth looking for this God particle?
Well, I think humans have a tendency to think we're bigger than we are and to fixate on our technology and think we're godlike and that we can do things that are greater than God himself or spirit itself can do. I would disagree with that. I would say that what's bigger than us is actually divine source. Always was, always will be. It's going to be greater than any central artificial intelligence we can ever create. There's nothing to be afraid of there either. You don't need to be afraid that we're caught in a matrix. It's just all false fear. You don't need to be afraid of any of that. I'm sure of that. So I can't prove it, but I can just tell you that doesn't feel right at all. So
don't you feel like we're I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Within what people would term God or the field, that everything exists within that. That's what really animates everything and brings it to life. Is that sort of how you view it, or is God external to us, looking in on us and somewhere else? What do you think?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel, to me, like there's a definite duality going on. So I think, sometimes people want to believe that there's, I love the idea of all that is. I love the idea of oneness, but I think it works better that there's actually this sense of creator that does exist. It feels more correct to me because I need to have that feeling of ultimate goodness to guide. And if I don't have that, then it's too easy to get lost, too easy to feel like there's no point. So I think it's actually necessary.
Maybe it feels safer and more paternal, like you have this great creator that loves you, and that feels safer, more loving than
it's also,
all of God is within us. All of God is within the mountains and the trees and the animals,
Well, for me personally, I also remember it from being between lives. So Diane Brandon wrote the book Born Aware, and I'm one of the 12 chapters. So I'm one of the... Yeah, it's a great book. And so for me, my favorite feeling is being between lives again, because what I like to do is hang out basically with God. It's really cool. Yeah. And I miss it like crazy, but I know it's still here. I know it's still possible no matter what is going on.
Well, I've got one for you that you probably haven't heard because I haven't told anybody, but Shane, I think I told Shane in one of our conversations that I was hypnotized by a member of the Edgar Cayce Research Foundation for their research. And I was only 24 and I was a somnambulist, so I could go deep, 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 and they could do all these psychic experiments. And he was very interested in the in-between material lifetimes. That's what he was researching. He didn't care who I was, on what planet or where, male, female, a peasant, a king. It didn't matter to him. It was all the in-between. And he said, can you describe it? And I said, well, not really, because words don't fit the in-between time. And he goes, well, just try. Just pretend like you're telling your grandmother what it's like. And I said, okay, it's like we're all pink, fluffy clouds, and we can communicate instantly. but we have nothing to say to each other because we already know everybody's thoughts here. It was this soul group of individual souls within a greater, like little clouds in a sky, just waiting, just communicating, being together. And it was my time getting ready to go back. It wasn't like what happens before you're ready to go back, because I don't know. I don't know if you got to that part.
Well, I was healed. I had been traumatized from my most recent past life, which was like 500 years in our future. And so I was visiting a future that I don't want us ever to go to. So that's part of why I do everything I do. That's why I love your show. It's so important. I can't even emphasize it enough. So I felt like I got rushed back in here a little earlier than I would have liked. Because, when you've just had a really rough time of it, like, I just need more time in the spa. Like, I don't want to go back.
I need to
Vacation was too short.
But did you hear that they're recycling lives more? The people who study this in children who can remember past lives up to the age of 7 are reporting them every 25 years now. Whereas they used to be every 50 years, every 100 years, every 200 years. They're just kind of like speeding up now. Have you heard that from experts?
No, I haven't, but it makes sense with the population figures for the planet right now. So it makes sense mathematically.
So why are we all trying to get in now? Why is this a crucial time for all of us to get here, be a part of it, experience it?
Well, that's like the Mandela Effect. This is a great awakening. So the idea is for us to recognize that what we're imagining can become real, and that we're actually steering things based on what we're afraid of. Like this time that I almost died back in 2017, 2 years ago. I was very afraid. And so I'm revisiting some of the same issues in my personal life, but this time not with any of the fear. And instead I'm going in with a greater sense of overall reverence, just like I had between lives, and maintaining that feeling of pure heart, which is really what I want to share with everybody today, because I think that's the key for all of us, that we can face things on this earthly life, which can be very hard. And we'll get to we can do the meditation later, but I just want to say that's why it matters so much to me to share that, and to retrieve that feeling of that spa between lives, when you have that pure heart, that connection, that reverence. And it doesn't feel like our daily lives right now. And those of us that remember it, like you do, like I do, we miss it. I don't know about you, but I sometimes miss it a lot.
Well, I died. I flatlined for 3 to 5 minutes and was resuscitated at 17. And my first words to the doctor was, "Let me go." What 17-year-old wants to go anywhere? That must have been the old soul saying, "Oh, it's much nicer out of this body."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's great. So nobody has to be afraid of dying. That's for sure. Yeah, it's huge.
We need
to think the forgetting process is a good thing, don't you think? I mean, when you really think about it, we hate that we don't remember stuff, but think of how much more difficult it would be if we're thinking about past lives, past regrets, past loved ones we don't see anymore. And then, this blissful place in between, it's like this vacation that we just can't wait to come,
You're right. Forgetting is good, so that we don't keep going, well, wait a minute, I was in a really good place a little while ago, Yeah,
and it makes it a real experience here too,
Well, Cynthia, last time you teased us a little because you said there is scientific evidence that I will be happy to share with you when we have more time, that this is a benevolent universe, and that the universe rewards goodness. Do you remember that? We were talking about this being that kind of a place.
Okay. I bet I was probably, this gets back into the philosophy. On this show tonight, we're talking about, I mentioned already, the philosopher Leibniz. And he basically had this first idea that philosophers in the Western world proposed about optimization. And that was, the torch was picked up and carried by several other philosophers. Some of them are process philosophers, which get into the idea that everything has more to do with beingness and doingness. So we're not so much it's not like the reality is all made of nouns like tables, chairs, but it's more action, verb. Everything's a verb. So it's that process feeling. But the philosopher Nicholas Rescher he's currently alive, I hope, in his 80s. And he wrote a book called Axiogenesis. And that's the book that really proves this this point. Now, of course, there will be skeptics that say, I don't believe it, even though this philosopher seems to have shown that we're always going to get the optimal reality because there's evidence to suggest that is the case. You're always going to get skeptics, but people with an open mind who are interested in philosophy and are not afraid of a book that gets a little, it's definitely a philosophy book. So it's like a textbook. So if you have trouble sleeping at night and you want to read something positive, so when you fall asleep, you've got good thoughts, there you go. Nothing better than Axiogenesis.
And it has a good argument to say the universe rewards balance and kindness and generosity and compassion and cooperation and all that stuff.
Yes. And so it's really great. Yeah, it's perfect. And it doesn't offend anybody based on their spiritual path, which I think is excellent. So it's not really getting into, the idea, it's not naming God per se, but it's basically bringing up these ideas in a very, if you've got an open mind, you can understand like, oh, I get it. This really is architected. There's something going on that's very evident that we can actually see. And we see proof of it or evidence of the same thing from things like the fine-tuning constant in the universe, which is set exactly right for life to exist. And if any of the constants in our universe were slightly off, we wouldn't be here at all. So the fact that we're here and we've got all these multiplicities of possible realities playing out, this is pretty cool. It's.
I always wondered, why are we here wondering why we're here? That's a real complex question for me. Like, why come here to wonder why you came here? That's interesting.
That's funny. I've always wondered why people don't wonder why we're here. And they just carry on. And how do you do that? How do you just follow the crowd until I die? And like, don't you have all these questions you need answered, man?
Buy another car. Buy another this.
Upgrade this. Upgrade this. And it's like all about, material things. But yeah, I don't know how people do it. And to me, that's so much more important to answer those questions that, why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? How do we get here? Where are we going?
Where do we go after here? Yeah. That's always a good question.
Yeah. But I think they're being answered. I think seek and ye shall find, like the Bible says. I think it's very true. And I think, that's what this community is coming together here and figuring all these things out. And without being seen like you're crazy, because we're all crazy together, right?
Yeah, we're all crazy together. And none of us force the other person to believe what we believe. We're like, okay, I'll put that on the table, consider it. And then we consider it respectfully, but we don't have to take it on.
Yeah, love is primary. Everything else is secondary.
Love is primary.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I believe in that person's philosophy because if you look at how a car runs or a human body runs, if you look at a system, and if suddenly a piece of the system gets greedy and starts sucking up all the oil, then the whole car stops working. And if something happens like, could you imagine the heart fighting the lungs for oxygen and the liver fighting the kidneys for blood? You wouldn't live very long. So a system must reward cooperation because it keeps the system going. It keeps the system healthy.
Yes, it does. I agree with that. And I also often feel like each of us plays a part in an overall interconnected system, very much like a body.
Yeah.
So we definitely have a role to play, and each of us is super important, just as we are. I think there's an intrinsic divine gift that each of us has that we can draw from and explore. And you probably have clues about what that is just based on the way you see the world. It might also have a lot to do with the challenges that you've been noticing, just the way that you perceive the world and the kind of things that bubble up into your consciousness and that you find interesting or unnerving or upsetting, whatever. But it comes to your attention.
But you never fell out of love with humanity. A lot of people like me went through a crisis, the dark night of the soul. Shane and I talk about that a lot, where we kind of gave up on humanity. We're like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And there's a lot of people in our community that are just getting through that now. They're like, oh, okay, maybe I don't have to give up on humanity. Yes. But you don't sound like you had that crisis where you thought, this is ridiculous. I'm not even going to try doing what I came here to do.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
that
a bit
whole
of a,
bring on the asteroid moment. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, asteroid, we're ready for you.
Yeah, hit us. Let's start over. We need a reset. This is horrible.
Yeah, I didn't have that. No, because it really has a lot to do with that horrific past life in the future. I mean, it was so bad that it's kind of a relief to be here and to be free of the technology that people were, it was built into them 500 years from now. Everybody was,
transhumanist.
Yeah,
transhumanist
exactly.
path.
Transhumanism. It wasn't even called that because it was so ubiquitous. Everybody, like everyone has a cell phone now. Everybody
was it in their palm? Hello. Yes, I'll be home at 7.
Probably jacked by that. By that time, it's probably just incorporated in a chip somewhere, right?
It's in your brain. You're just like ringing. Can you imagine somebody calling you in your head?
Right. So on the surface of it, it looked perfect. It was like everything was ideal. The artificial intelligence, the central AI, was making sure that the environment was humming along beautifully. There were no more, horrific imbalances in the ecosystems. Mm-hmm. There were no more crime waves. The population was controlled. People were controlled. But you can see where this is going. It's like... Yeah. It was not good.
But you said there's no fear. Don't be afraid of AI. People.
Exactly. Don't be afraid.
You experience this. So is this one of the possibilities of an infinite number of possibilities?
Right. It is. And further than that, we've already won. So there are enough. I was part of what you might call a Renegade AI group that was from that future that jumped back through time. Through normal.
You haven't seen that new show, have you, Travelers? That Shane put me onto.
Oh my God, it's
that's
good.
Exactly
You're
what
gonna
they
love
do.
It.
You're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it.
So
is it on Netflix or Prime? Who knows
totally
where Travelers is?
I know it looks crazy, but as of the year 2010, that central AI from the future that was sending messages to a whole lot of people, and other people have confirmed this was happening. That future is no longer selected as our point of preferred destination. So we've already we hit a tipping point, and we changed it as of 2010. So
one of your friends wrote that show. That's all I can say is that one of your companions.
What you just said. I'm like, you sound like I thought you were talking about the show when you said that.
No,
I thought you were. I'm like, wait, you have seen it?
No, it was like this horrible past life in my future. I remember it quite clearly, and no, I didn't want to talk about this experience a lot because, for one thing, up until 2010, I was being pursued by the central AI. I'd have to dream backwards to evade it. So
I see a book in this. I really do. I know Travelers has been done, but you might as well write your story.
Yeah,
it'd be an awesome book. I'll buy it.
So this brings back that question of when I came across the Wingmakers material, and they said humanity's at a crossroads. You can either evolve naturally, spiritually, or we can take this computer route. And this is the future that you're talking about. You saw, but they're from the other future, where we took the proper route because a lot of the things we're trying to do through communications with, or just computers and things like that, we're going to have that ability to do this stuff, naturally. We're going to develop telepathy and and bilocating, as you've experienced already. Yes. And these are things Jesus did back in the day, by the way. Yes. You know what I mean? This is like, so, and he said we were going to do the things he did. So I think that's like, we're at this crossroads where do we want to have a jack in the back of our neck, or do we want to do this through meditating and bringing in love and this sort of thing?
Well, the big thing I noticed was that when people made that decision previously to go that automated route, they did it because it was easy. They didn't want to have to think about voting for the right politicians, about doing the right things to save the environment. It was too much work. So they just wanted systems to do everything for them. And they just one by one gave up on everything. Like, just give it to the central AI. Let it handle everything.
It's like the movie WALL-E, where everybody's sitting around in a chair drinking and watching TV.
I didn't see that one.
But you've not seen it? You'd love it.
Really?
Yeah, you got to see WALL-E.
Yeah, so we've got some good movies showing the way. It sounds like good TV shows too.
But this is all about future memory. This is about one of your favorite authors and mine, PMH Atwater.
Exactly.
And I read the book, and I'm going to have to read it again because it's a very philosophical book, that future memory. It's not about deja vu.
No.
The future memory is what you're dealing with now. You can remember yourself on a course, and now you're saying this is different, so I can't do that.
Well, I know it's different because I could feel the difference of being. I was no longer tracked by central AI as of October 2010, which ironically is exactly when a whole bunch of people who were doing government time travel programs, 3 of them independently told me, you did not exist before, but now you do. Yeah, I was laying low. I had to, if you're being
But
pursued.
you wrote Reality Shifters in 1999.
Yeah, but it's kind of like flying under the radar. I was, I had to. It's very weird, but it's hard to explain.
Cool though. It's really
Yeah.
It is, because
sci-fi.
Shane and I have always loved you and said, this is a scientist who's on our side. She understands that reality is shifty, and she's a scientist. So we're like,
Yes.
really lucky to have you.
Yes,
But you
I
were
feel
laying
lucky
low.
to have you.
You were laying
Yeah.
low. You weren't
Oh, yeah.
like,
It's relieving. I don't know why. I mean, we've learned our lesson time and time again. People in official roles sometimes have to follow a narrative. They can't, they don't want to go too far outside of what's considered, mainstream or whatever. So it's
Right.
really nice when someone like you that's really educated about all of this stuff can come out
a physicist. Yes.
yeah, and validate whatever, the laymen, if you will, are seeing. We're noticing these things, and it's nice to know we're not crazy, because professors and stuff.
Yeah, because
are
nobody
really
pays
tight-lipped.
attention to us, do they, Shane? We say this stuff all the time, and they're like, what do they know?
Right.
Oh, I love you. I love you guys.
Thank
you have
you.
street cred, is what we're saying.
You have street cred that we lack.
Right.
Awesome.
But yeah, you're
Well,
in the right group here. So
You
yeah.
are definitely in the right community. We have the most awesome community. There's a lot of love and a lot of intelligence in this community, and a lot of artistic people, and a lot of healers. So we've kind of like roped up all the creatives, every kind of capacity of creative, right? Whether you're a singer, songwriter, screenwriter, or a healer, Reiki, nurse, we're just all in this together. And you said something last time that one of our listeners, my sister, hello, Healthy Aging, she might be watching this after work later, said, can you please ask Cynthia to expound more and clarify about really getting a powerful Power of 8 group together if the watchers can watch the watchers watch the watchers? And you said, so I'm like, is the end of that taking it to God, and that's as powerful as it gets? Or is there something we can do during our meditation to make it even more powerful? Because we're doing meditations for the earth.
Yeah. Okay. So when I hear that question of watchers watching the watchers watching the watchers, this gets to the area of what can you do when you feel disempowered, when you feel like you're a small community, but maybe you don't like what your elected officials are doing, or you feel powerless for whatever reason, and you want to have an effect. Can you have an effect? Absolutely. Absolutely. So it helps to work with groups that have an open mind to these topics in the first place. So to build a good group, I would look for pure heart and reverence would be the top things I would look for, actually, because people that have a pure heart, that's their intention, that they're actually, some people talk about egoless, and maybe you could think of it a little bit like that, but a pure heart is really about having this vast, it's kind of like a warrior spirit. In Buddhism, they call it something about the rising sun of the East. It's the feeling of being aligned with the intrinsic goodness of the universe. In Christianity, of course, it's like the Holy Spirit. It's just recognizing and believing that Christ did die for our sins, and realizing in this moment, wow, I don't need anything else. That's the greatest gift anyone could ever give me. And what right do I even have to have any complaints, and really mean it and feel it. When you feel it, you're in it. That's the feeling I'm talking about. So it's whichever tradition you're in, whether it's Jewish or indigenous, it doesn't matter what it is, but you can find that open heart feeling that just blows you open. And that's what you want in your Power of 8 group. And that's that feeling of reverence where you look at everyone and there for the sake of God go I. And you realize that could be me, probably is me. And let me do what I best can at my highest level of being. So it's just always, it's that how good can it get lifestyle, but then it becomes how God can it get, how good can I get, how God can I get. And it naturally goes into reverence and pure heart. That would be what I'd look for that.
Lynn
really
says that. Lynn McTaggart. Do you know her? Have you spoken with her?
I've interviewed her for my podcast, Living the Quantum Dream. And that was pretty recent, so people can find it. It's free to listen to. It's Dream Vision 7 radio network. And it was a good interview. I did ask her because there was one thing that I needed clarification on, because she mentioned that she was surprised that a group of, it doesn't need to be exactly 8. If people are wondering, I don't have 8, don't worry about it. It works with like anywhere from 6 to 12. And there's a whole thing with the disciples of Christ and so forth. But the thing that's really important that she didn't know was existing is that a group that is aligned for the purpose of healing something else or sending good intentions elsewhere would be the recipients of that healing. But that was the first thing I learned when I joined a healing group in the late 1990s. And it seemed like common knowledge, and most of the people studying Reiki knew it. So I was surprised she'd never heard of it. But it could just be an alternate reality thing. And she said she talked to Larry Dossey. I love Larry Dossey.
Mhm.
He's a big hero of mine.
Power
And
of
she said,
prayer.
yeah, and she said he'd never heard of it, which is outrageous. But I think I
the
was.
leaky bucket. What
But
a
see,
great term, right? You got this bucket of love, and you're going to throw it at somebody to heal them, their finances, their body, their relationships, whatever they need. And as you throw this bucket of love, it all splashes back on you, which is reality. If you throw a bucket of water on somebody, you're going to get wet, you know?
And it's also considered like a throughput, like you're the hose, like you're sending energy through your hands, and you can feel it flowing
like a
through
conduit.
you.
That's how I
You're a
view it.
conduit.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I studied theta healing, so it makes perfect sense for me. If anybody's read theta healing, we might have a few theta healers, where you go through the different levels: the etheric, the thinking, the astral, the feeling, the levels of where your dead loved ones and your spirit guides would be, and then you get to your higher self, and then you get to the angelic, and then you get to source, and you step aside and you witness. You stand in the space and you witness the healing for that person. You don't heal them. You don't have the power to do it, but you have the power to ask with them and then witness it. And it's a beautiful system of healing. Totally quantum.
Yes. And it fits in with what we're talking about, the pure heart, the reverence, these other ways of looking at it. So,
well, can we ask you if you know how many dimensions there are? Because Nikola Tesla visited either 26 or 28. That's where he got his information from. So what do you think about these levels of this holographic, multidimensional soup that we're in?
I think just like everything else, they're up for grabs. There could be 32 of them, could be 42. I think it changes. So,
What
I
about
think
an
that's
infinite number? What about a gazillion and 42?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in a quantum universe, folks. So anything you think is a fact, it's like the truth stays solid, but facts are always going to change. And that's what people need to become really comfortable with. And I think that's why we're playing with some of this right now, experiencing these Mandela effects, reality shifts in our daily life, and just getting used to it, like having fun with it.
If you read the history of science, a scientific fact is only a fact until somebody disproves it. And every single fact gets disproved along the way. So I thought a really good example of Mendel Effect is spontaneous evolution. It's where they study an animal, and suddenly an animal develops something extremely unique. And they can't see the animals in between that led to the big change. And they just go, oh, spontaneous evolution. One day it wasn't there, the next day it was.
I agree. I did a YouTube video on this because I think it's really evidence, again, of these quantum jumps, that in fact, it's really hard to find any kind of continuity in any of the evolutionary steps. They're always a quantum jump. It's always a leap. If you look at a horse, for example, and look at how the original horses were a very different size, and each step along the way was just this bizarre, strange leap, and there's nothing in between to connect them. So they've got missing links everywhere.
So there's no point looking for the missing link of human, because you're just not going to find it. Remember that missing link, supposedly?
Side. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you noticed the eyes of horses while we're talking about horses? Have you noticed that they've got a slit this way, or have they always been that way for you?
Wow. No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they got slits this way, and check this out. As they walk and their head bobs, their eyes rotate in the sockets to stay parallel with the land. That's this is all brand new to me.
It's all brand new to me.
Gosh, I've never heard of that.
But the pupil being wide allows them to see if a predator is approaching they have a much broader field of vision to keep an eye out for predators. So
It's like a rectangle, isn't it? Is that it?
yeah, it's like it's a
pupil.
rectangle that's wider, but it's weird because I look at the eye and I'm like, I've looked at a horse's eye and it was like a big human eye or something. It was just a big round pupil, but ginormous, of course. But it's not like that anymore. They're this way. It's
Wow.
check it out. Yeah.
And what about the new bone in our knee?
Oh yeah,
don't
like
know.
behind it. Yeah, we got all sorts of.
Yeah, we got a new bone recently in our knee.
Well, I think we're getting
Crazy stuff.
improvements, like the kidneys are in a safer location.
And that
So-
collarbone now is so thick, isn't it? Compared
Yes.
to how it used to be. We have this like massive piece of bone connecting our
fragile.
arms now. Yeah, it used to be fragile because I know a lot of people who broke it.
Yes.
Yeah, I broke my
Falling.
collarbone. I'm sitting
See?
here wondering. I'm like, oh my gosh, did my collarbone get repaired like my ribs?
Mhm.
It probably did. I don't even know.
Super thick.
That's wild.
It is. I see them as improvements too, though. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was that one study where it had the birds on this island that their beaks had to get longer. Within a generation, they got long enough to go down into the horn of the flower and get the nectar out or whatever it was. But that happened within a generation. It lengthened like instantly,
That's happening.
spontaneously.
Spontaneous
Yes.
evolution.
Yes.
Poor Darwin.
And-
He's turning in his grave right now as we speak.
He's probably like clapping. Thanks for undoing what I've done. No, I'm just playing.
You're welcome.
Well, this is part of the quantum invasion. There was the Beatles invasion when they came to America. Now it's the quantum invasion, and it's
It is.
invading every science. It's not going to leave anything untouched. So
Yeah, Shane
it's
said
in
that's
biology.
That's the first thing he said to me was, we should call this a quantum awakening, Eileen. And I'm like, yeah, we should, but nobody's going to catch on to that. We got to stick with Mandela Effect,
Nobody's going to find us. Yeah.
We can't start it, can we?
You can call it the quantum invasion, and that might catch people.
Yeah, it might,
'cause-
Yeah,
it sounds fearful, so they'll be like, invasion, what's going on here?
I think scientists are
we're
going to get
naturally
really
attracted
ticked
to
at
that.
us, Shane, sitting here and pushing this stuff, It's like eventually they're going to have to go, darn it, we're going to have to go down that rabbit hole now. We can't let these other people without, letters after their name try to figure it all out on their own.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's happening already. Like we're seeing with these science experiments showing that there is no such thing as objective reality. I've been waiting 20 years to see that headline. This is the biggest news story I've seen before I noticed that I had died apparently 2 years ago. But a lot of people don't know who I am. But these are huge news stories.
Who you are in our community. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good.
you're a rock star.
We've been the wackos a long time, Cynthia. So we know who you are.
You're not wackos.
We were reading alternative things in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It's like we've always had one foot in that camp of, I don't know, what do you want to call it? It's not the wackos, but it's the open-minded explorers of reality.
You're here for the awakening. This is the grand awakening on Earth, and so you were waiting for it. You were ready for it. You're looking for it. Like, where is it? I know it's coming.
It's coming.
Who's got it?
Coming.
Yeah.
It's coming.
You can feel it. You can feel it.
And it's funny, when I woke up, somebody else said that too. When they woke up, they felt like when you wake up late for your alarm clock, or you slept through and you're running around like crazy and you feel like you're late. And I felt like that totally at first. I'm like, I'm so far behind and stuff. And,
You're a baby. You're still in your 40s, aren't you?
well, I just mean with everybody, I was realizing things, and then you find all these people, and you're like, yeah, you're on the right track and stuff. Like, oh,
You're
wait,
so
I'm late
wise
to
for
the
your
party
age.
here.
You have this natural wisdom, this natural gnosis, right?
Thank you.
It is.
I
It's
appreciate
natural. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about you, Shane.
I appreciate it. You have it too.
You bring the best out of everybody, Shane. It doesn't matter who your guest is. It doesn't matter. You will bring out the best they have to offer.
Well, I appreciate that.
It's true. And you have Dolores Cannon on your side. That was
Yeah, I actually got a
amazing.
channeling from her the other night.
Yes.
Oh,
That
what
was so
happened?
cool.
You probably
Uh,
shared it already, but I didn't hear it.
Well, Candace Carl Goldman came on a few days
Okay.
ago, and
Yeah.
she had gotten a message from Dolores Cannon for me and gave it to me live on the air. It was awesome. That about me being a good example of the 5D divine masculine and things like that. It was, and all the work I do on the channel and how far-reaching it is, and it was a great message, and it really made me
Especially
ponder.
divine masculine. It was showing that you can be compassionate without losing your masculinity in the process. But you
can still be nurturing.
Yep. Yep.
I could see how everything's led up to this. I got my first 4 children were girls, so I got 4 daughters, and then the son comes along, so it was, and then I was raised by my mom and my sister for, many of my teenage years. So, yeah, I was placed to become who I am today, so it's really cool.
Yeah, we're doing what we came here to do, what we're meant to do.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys want to do the meditation? Are you ready?
Sure.
Yeah, we're right at an hour.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay. Were there any other questions that you had lined up first? Let
me double check.
I think I got through my list. We did the quantum genome effect last time.
Yes.
We did EPR steering, which we get. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We did spontaneous evolution, scientific proof we live in a kind, loving universe, and your last 2 videos. That's it for me, unless you know the scientists at Berkeley, because you live there, who are studying whether or not every time we die, we quantum jump. Do you know about that?
Don't know about that, and I have no idea what's going on there. So sorry about. I'd love more information about it. Sounds fascinating.
It sounds fascinating.
I do have a question as it relates to the genome effect, which we talked about that last time. That it was sort of when we're observing things, we kind of hold it in that position. And this might account for why some people might not see certain changes. Like if you live in a city, you might not notice the change like someone that just visited the city and then they left because you weren't observing it the whole time, because you went there, looked at it, left. You come back, you can observe the changes. And you even mentioned that when people leave and come back. It's something about reloading in the environment and things can change. But with people that they say they see things change right before their very eyes. Like, okay, so I've seen it where, I look at a Febreze bottle, right, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was spelled the right way, and I'll double take and look back at it, and it's spelled the new way. So, you don't know if it's your eyes playing tricks on you, or your mind, or if it really just changed right in front of you, or if it was that observer thing, like maybe you did see it properly, and then it switched. Do you think, according to the genome effect, do you think people, if they say, I was sitting at a traffic light and I saw the light switch, and then, red was on the bottom and green was on the top, and if they actually, do you think you can actually see the change happen? The words on the page change? Or is it, you have to look
as
away
it
and look
happens?
Back? Yeah, because I don't think by my understanding of it, I don't think you're allowed to see. You might blink and it change, you might turn your head and look back and it changes, but you won't see it change while you're looking at it. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I think it's possible to catch it kind of in the act. I think it is possible. My next issue of Reality Shifters, someone took a picture like that, and the picture itself, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And the person who took it asked, do you get lots of photos like this? And I said, no, do not get lots of photos like this. But it's pretty unusual. It looks very weird. It looks like the sky and the things in the picture are kind of like rippling a little bit and kind of out of sync. And there's no way a digital camera can do that. I've looked up all the digital camera aberrations and things that can go wrong, glitches. None of them look like that. And this camera has not glitched any other time. And so you look at the scene, and it usually looks normal, but this image is just kind of, it got this line down it, kind of like you're looking at 2 realities.
Wow.
It's really tricky.
It's like
so it's uncommon, but it can happen, you think? That's cool.
Yes, I think it's uncommon and can happen. Just like it's possible. Now they've taken pictures of quantum particles that are both in the particle and the wave state. So they've got that. Why not be able to capture?
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, that's definite proof. And I think if it did happen to most, I'd say 99% of the people, they'd be like, oh my gosh, it looked like it was that way, and now it's not, and they just blow it off. They're like, it was just in my head,
I think people usually blow this stuff totally off. And what that's the value of what you guys are doing and what I'm doing is helping people recognize maybe this really did happen.
Yeah.
And you're not going crazy. This is real, and it's okay. It's going to be all right.
One thing that we don't do when we're quantum jumping is see ourselves. You're not jumping, are you, Cynthia? Going, oh my God, there I go. You're not seeing yourself, are you?
Well, I have heard from a couple of people that were driving down. They were going back the opposite direction, like they forgot something. They're driving down the road, and they see the same vehicle with them driving it, going the other way, and it's like the freakiest thing they ever saw in their life.
Did they see themselves in the car?
Yes.
So you don't self-destruct like a Ghostbuster if you see yourself. You know that old saying, if you see your doppelganger, you both drop dead.
It's not a really common experience. Like, I've only heard about 2 people report that one. This is in 20 years.
That would freak me out if I saw me. I'd be like,
Yeah,
what?
It takes a
Probably
stir-
wreck. Probably wreck
know.
like this. You know?
You would. You'd love it. You'd be like, hey, I got some advice for you. Come over here.
But it's you from 5 minutes ago or whatever. So
That's
You know,
trippy.
sometimes I do that. It's really weird. I started doing it in my 20s when I lived in Egypt, and I would sit down and have a chat with myself. I go, okay, I'm going to have a chat with my past self, with somebody that I knew I was when I was 14, and don't do this. Don't make this mistake. And then I'm like, I wonder if I ever catch up to my own advice. Right? And get that message in a meditation, you know, since time is all happening at once, I could actually be leaving myself little messages.
Right.
That would be like that paradox in reverse, though, wouldn't it? The one where you go back, because if it never would have happened, then you never would have went back and warned yourself not to do that.
That's true.
It's a paradox.
It is a paradox, but paradoxes are very real and very true. We keep talking about these things, and we're like, yeah, paradoxes can happen and be real.
One of my favorite ways to talk to the past is to go in gratitude, you know, just to really be grateful for and thankful for something that you wish would have happened, or that you kind of see a seed of it, a tiny bit of it. Just be super, super grateful that is there. Kind of feed the seed. Like, oh, that's so awesome.
Feed the seed. The other thing I do, I don't know who wrote it. It could be you, but they said, if there's something you don't like in your past, that you reacted really badly, go back, get there, center yourself, meditate, right? And redo it. Relive it the way you would prefer that it went, that you reacted. Like, this is how I wish I had done it. So relive it as if you did.
Yes. That's really good advice. Yeah.
I don't know if that changes your past. I don't know if our pasts are that flexible.
Well, if you're lined up with yourself and with spirit, you can totally change the past. We do it all the time. So we're doing it constantly. We don't usually notice it. But, you know, just like we're talking about spontaneous evolution, we're changing, and we see proof of changing facts and histories all the time. It's not a problem to change our own past. We see it when we have spontaneous remission from disease. Any kind of instantaneous healing is absolutely we're making huge changes to what supposedly has happened and what's going on. So we're doing it constantly. And it's that you can also think, how good can it get with the past? You don't need to fixate on what went wrong.
You don't need to fixate. You can just know that it was perfect the way it was.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And be grateful for it. Boy, we're going to be very unusual creatures if we can see our future and our past changing constantly. It'll be like, I don't know what it'll be like, but it'll be interesting.
Well, it feels
I think everybody here is. Everyone here is thankful to have you here. So it's like just the fact that we have gratitude that you're still with us. Maybe that caused you to be with us now in this timeline or whatever. You know?
Actually, maybe it made us jump into Cynthia's timeline, Shane.
Yeah.
And maybe it drew us to her.
Yeah.
The timeline where she is.
We just don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll be grateful for that.
Yeah, I know we hold each other together. We do. You know, the love that we feel makes a huge difference. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you believe in soul groups then? Do you believe in Seth, Jane Roberts, that whole, there could be 1 million of you splintered down here, or 10,000 or 100. You don't know how many of your soul family are down here on any given lifetime.
Yeah, I think so. Well, you mentioned this TV show I've never heard of, but it sounds like my past life in the future. So
you gotta see it.
Obviously.
What's that on, Shane? Where's Travelers? Is it Netflix?
Travelers, you can watch it on Netflix, and it's
3 seasons, and you have to watch them in order.
Wow. Cool.
But you'll find a lot of. I can't wait. When we have you back, I'd like to hear your parallel comparisons of the two.
Yeah, which character are you, Cynthia, in Travelers?
If you'll come back.
Yeah, will you come back?
Of course. I love you guys. Are you kidding? You're family. You guys are so
We'll give you a few months off to go make the rounds, right? We'll share you.
Definitely. Yeah, you're always welcome back here. So if you ever have anything coming up that you want to get out or talk about.
Yeah, you're ever bored on a Saturday night, you just call Shane and go, right, I'm on, guys. Come on. I want to talk about stuff.
Next time there's a big news flash. Yeah, there's so much has happened. So.
Oh, yeah. Let's get your take on the cathedral. Most of us were like, no death? Okay, burn it to the ground. We just didn't care. Nobody got hurt. They removed the statues before the fire. Notre Dame, right? Nostradamus, Notre Dame. That when Candace was telling you, Shane, I was amazed at the synchronicities there. It was on Dolores' birthday, wasn't it? Or the day before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened on Dolores' birthday, which April 15th. Yeah, that's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right before Easter, they removed. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff with that. But I felt like it was symbolic. I felt like it was actually a positive symbol, just like
it didn't bother me.
Yeah, it seemed like a cleansing, like a coming together. And when you look at what the net effect is and feel the love and the community that came together, and you hear the singing of the crowds, the thing I loved most about Notre Dame when I was there was I just happened to walk in and people were singing, and I loved that the most. And then to be able to hear that's what people are doing as it's on fire. And obviously they're praying, they're singing. It's beautiful. And I realized it's kind of like how the Grinch stole Christmas and
the image I got was the Yahoo line where they're all holding hands like everybody's, someone stole all our Christmas presents. Let's go sing about it.
I think it's a grand symbol for all of civilization right now. So whatever it is that's on fire, whatever is burning, don't get fixed into the material reality. Recognize that the main thing is our voices together, our consciousness together, and that we are capable of bringing anything back. And there's no way to lose things. You can't lose it anyway. Everything's okay. And it's really the love
in
that
the future. Have we hit the 100th monkey yet? In your opinion, have we done this? We're there. It's safe. We've got this great new Earth coming.
We've done something as of October 2010. I'm the only one that I know that talks about that as being such an important date because I was there. I was part of it, and then I was able to witness that personally, and it takes me a long time to be able to feel safe talking about it. Like when you've been tracked by Central AI for like 40 years, that's a bit scary. That's an understatement. So to realize like, okay, I think it's safe. I'm not being tracked. So it's gone. And that particular reality is no longer there. Thank goodness. So I think artificial intelligence is fine. We just don't want to put all the eggs into one basket. You don't want to ever say that some central AI is as good as God. That's a huge mistake.
Huge mistake.
Epic mistake,
Human beings inventing God. That's a big horror story. Yeah.
So I think that one's pretty obvious. I hope it's obvious. And I think that's part of the Notre Dame burning and the recognition, like we are coming back together. This is what matters. It's our voices together.
Do you think we split off and we create this reality for ourselves because we're drawn to it? Or do you think we take everybody with us? Is this something where we actually heal those?
Can it be both?
Yeah.
I think
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So some of it's just for you. Some of it's for your soul group. Some of it's for like the collective altogether. So there's different levels of things going on. And it's huge. There's a lot going on.
I have a feeling that things could happen, at different times for different people. So while we might perceive it as like, oh, well, they went off and they split off and all of that, once you're out of this particular reality, we might all come out at the same time, and it might be the same for us on the other side. It's like, oh, I was waiting for you. You weren't waiting for me. I just got here too, and it's like, oh, okay.
It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, kind of crazy. But fun.
That's a movie I've never seen. I should watch that. It's on all the free channels. Yeah, I got to watch it. The phone booth, right?
It's
the
so
time
much
traveling
fun.
Phone booth.
I love it. That's the right spirit to have when you're experiencing reality shifts, I think. Just have fun with it, like you're doing some crazy science report.
I agree. There's a lot of fun with it. And once you wake up and you see it's happening and you go a few months and see, well, I'm still here. I'm okay. It must not, mean the end of the world is tomorrow. I know. Or that I've died. I've thought of all of these things, crazy things, but I'm cool with it now. It's been a couple of years and I'm like, okay, so.
Yeah.
You guys, when you get a chance, look up the interview on YouTube of the woman who wrote The Matrix. She is fascinating. Have you come across her? She dated Muhammad Ali. She wrote this book. She's like a genius. And she wrote this book in college. And she shopped it all over Hollywood, and they got a hold of it, and they just took it away from her. And what's fascinating is she wrote The Terminator too. That's the beginning of The Matrix.
See, so that's like my soul family. She's like my soul family.
You gotta see this lady talk about it. She won. It took her until a couple of years ago to win her court case, and she won. It belongs to her. The whole, whatever they call that franchise,
Right.
belongs to her now and nobody else, because they stole it from her.
Right.
And they divided it up into 2 franchises because the Terminator is the beginning of the Matrix. They go together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, it sure doesn't it sound like my past life in the future, that traumatic one? I mean, it does to me. So I
I
couldn't.
think she's one of your family. You got to
Yeah,
watch her talk
obvious.
about it.
Oh yeah, but there were a bunch of us that jumped back, so I knew about that too. And it's a team project, so we're working together. But
Do you
a
still
whole
know them since you jumped
What?
back? Do you still know them now that you jumped back?
Okay, let me fill you in on this. When you're being tracked by central AI, you have to learn to go under the radar. You're working together, even though you never talk to each other. It's like James Bond to the nth degree, like the quantum James Bond, like
Is
something
it
you've never
telepathic? Is it telepathic?
Absolutely. Yeah, so you just know you've got a team, but you can't talk to them. You don't have to. You know they're there, but everybody's doing their part, and you just have to have faith. It's just
This
real
isn't the
faith.
brotherhood that the metaphysicians, the theosophists talk about, is it? Is it the Brotherhood of Light? Is it that group that Dwal Kul and the Tibetan and Madame Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, and Alice Bailey spoke about? Is
It's
it that same
possible.
group?
The group that I'm from, we wouldn't give each other. I mean, we wouldn't. There'd be no grand names. It's kind of like it's not really about us. It's nice to get the credit, but it's more important to make the difference.
To do the
Having
work.
said
That's
that,
why I didn't like those grand group names, the White
Yeah.
Brotherhood or the Brotherhood
Yeah.
of Light, or all of these grand.
Yeah, because that's kind of a little exclusive, and like it should be open to anybody that wanted to jump into that nasty future, make a difference, and jump
Well,
back.
they're creating
Wide
it
open.
because they coined the word New Age. They coined the word Aryan race. It means the 5th race. It's the 5th root race of humanity. And they coined the word United Nations. And the United Nations, it was the Lucifer Publishing Company until 1922, and then they changed it to the Lucis or Lucius, which you probably know of today as the Lucius Trust, which is
Wow.
in the United Nations, printing all the materials for the United Nations. So whatever they created, that momentum from the 1880s to 1920 with the industrialists is still chugging along. It's still
that
doing
machine.
whatever it's doing.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But not to worry, we win. It's no big deal. It's gonna be fine.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
Well, let's okay, awesome. Let's guess we can get right to the meditation here.
Let's do it. Okay. So the background on the meditation is I just found out I died. I'm now dealing with some of the same issues again. Here's how I'm getting through it. It's what I call being just more centered in how good can it get than I've ever been before, just raising it up a level. I think sometimes when we die and we find out we've died, then that's what it was really about. It's like, are you willing to face some kind of fear and go through it at a higher level? So it's kind of like you're leveling up.
We're leveling up tonight, folks.
Let's level it up. Yep. This is a level up.
It's a
we
level
can
up.
actually kill our cameras for the meditation itself. I'm going to go ahead and mute so my mic doesn't cut it.
This is our level up meditation for opening to a pure heart and feeling complete reverence. So you can close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Hopefully you're not operating heavy machinery, and you can just focus on a sense of your breathing, just calming yourself down. And whatever you're feeling, it's okay. Sometimes we've got feelings that are a little bit mixed and scrambled. We've talked about a lot of ideas, so you might have different feelings going on, but you can know for sure that it's okay to let go of any thoughts or feelings that might be causing you to get distracted. You can just let them go. You can observe thoughts like they are clouds floating by, and just let them keep going until the frame of your mind is just clear blue sky. And all those clouds are just clearing away. And you can imagine, if you will, this dawning of a new light. It's kind of like you're watching the rising sun of a new day, a new morning. This is your new day, your fresh start. So whatever's happening in your life, whatever might be going on, this meditation is designed to bring you to the highest level of how good can it get. by virtue of putting yourself in service to being part of how good can it get at every level of your being. There's no downside to this. It just means you'll be leveling up to become more of who you are here to be, to enjoy more of who you really are, to live life with more love, more kindness, more fearlessness, more healing, more health, more well-being, to bring an evolved sense of togetherness within yourself, harmoniousness, and also a greater attunement and alignment with this conceptualization of how good can it get, which is really how pure can love get in your life, in your heart, in your being. And like I keep saying, there's no downside. What this will produce is what you might consider miracles. There definitely miracles will happen. Definitely good luck. This is the highest good luck you could ever possibly wish for. It's also an attunement with any kind of healing work that you're doing. And it's a recognition that you're ready for this, to reach a new evolved state of self-awareness, that you're much bigger than any of the problems that you've ever thought were causing trouble or vexing you in any way in your life. So here we go. Let's just bring our attention again to the breathing in case it veered away. Again, just clearing any thoughts. If you see them as clouds, just watch them float away. And keeping attention on your breathing, slowing it down to a natural rhythm for you. And imagining that you can see the dawning of a new day. I'm closing my eyes. You can close your eyes too to see it clearly in your mind's eye. And just feel the beginning warmth of those first rays, beautiful golden rays shining through, like a bridge inviting you to expand your awareness, to open your heart. You can feel a connection with your heart and this beautiful rising sun. You can, if you'd like to, invite this pure sense of pure heart into your life. You can make that invitation now. This is your choice, and I think it's a good choice. Again, it's just going to bring good luck, good healing, good health. It's just all good. It will put you a little bit more in service to good, but that's a good thing. So you can recognize that as you breathe in this love that you're feeling from Divine Source, and as you feel the rays of this sunshine, the first rays hitting you, striking you with this feeling of love and remembrance of who you are here to be, that you came here in this lifetime for a reason, that life is intrinsically good. You are intrinsically good. You have a pure heart, a pure soul. You know this. And anything that runs counter to that, you can breathe it out and release it now. If anyone's ever told you something otherwise, time to let go of that. Just breathe it out. As you breathe in, receive more of this rising sun, this feeling of Divine Source, this feeling of filling yourself with this new discovery of reverence for this beautiful energy, this highest level energy of ultimate goodness, with an intention and a desire to feel how good it can get in your life, recognizing that this does put you in service to highest good, and this is a good thing. So you will be called in good ways that are fun, enjoyable, and true to who you are, to be part of how good it can get for all of us. Then you know this is why you're here now. You can feel it. You can feel a restoration of more of you than you might normally feel, like parts of you are coming together, This is fine. You might feel a sense that your heart's bursting open with so much love. You might actually start crying. There can be a very overwhelming rush of emotion with this, and that's fine. That's normal. You might feel so much energy that you can't sit still. That's okay. I can feel it really flowing through. If you're already an energy healer, then you can take a lot of energy. So just keep bringing it in, breathing it in, allowing yourself to be filled with more and more of this divine source energy, this intention that you are purifying your heart to retain a sense of intrinsic purity of your soul essence in this world, very much like being pure in spirit, being between lives, being back to that first core being, spirit self that you are, with an expanding sense of connection to all that is, and a sense of great reverence that we are here together, that you are here now, and a feeling that you are needed to be just as you are on this earth at this time, right here, right now. You can feel the warmth of this rising sun filling your heart with so much love. And now is a good time, if you have some sense of what this ultimate goodness is in your life, what your own spiritual path is, it's a good time to connect with that, to really invite assistance from any of your highest level angelic guides, all the ones that you feel closest to. You can invite them to please guide you, to purify your heart, to be as pure in heart as possible, to feel as much reverence as possible in your life. And thanking all of us that are here together right now. Thank you so much for being here. And I feel this with so much in my heart, the reverence for you being who you are. I'm just breathing this love we're going to be quiet and just feel this now for maybe 30 to 60 seconds, about a minute. Just being quiet and feeling this beautiful energy, this pure spirit, this reverence. And if you want to, you can open your eyes. If you had them closed, it's okay to keep them closed too if you prefer. Thank you.
Beautiful. I could totally feel the love and the connectedness.
That felt really
That
emotional.
was sweet. Yeah, it was sweet.
I haven't felt that emotional since we did our meditations for children and veterans, and really sensitive needing groups.
That's New Earth right there, that feeling. Just,
Yeah.
just resonating with that. And if we can resonate with that and stay in that, even like moments throughout the day, I'll take a deep breath and just, even if it's just 10 seconds, just stop. Take that deep breath and feel that. You can do it all the time. And it's almost better, I feel, than doing it like periodically throughout the day than trying to carve out a whole hour or something to sit and meditate.
I agree. Yeah.
Staying in that sense, and especially if you get triggered or something catch you off guard, just center,
Enjoy it. Yeah. Take that moment. I agree.
Yeah.
When
Feeling
I'm
that
waking up,
okayness.
I do a Wayne Dyer thing, and as I'm starting to come to and figure out who I am and where I am, I just start saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Heartfelt, thank you. I'm back. I'm back here. I get another chance at this. I got another day,
Yes.
And waking up with gratitude is an amazing, wonderful way to start a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
the attitude of gratitude, and then having just that how good can it get is just that shifts your perspective completely right to where you need to be, you know?
And before I go to bed, I do the same thing. So the last thing I'm thinking is gratitude for this day that I've had. So I don't really have nightmares. I don't know. It just sends me off into a different path.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, that's so good.
It feels
Thank
pretty
you
good.
guys. Thank you guys for being here. I can totally feel you guys in the chat, and you guys later on watching this. I know you still connect to us because time is really not what we think it is. So you've just connected in. I know you felt it too. I felt it later on, so I know it's there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
No matter when you watch it. I did want to say something really quick about Michelle's opinions. Daughter had passed away, and there's a GoFundMe account. She passed away a week ago yesterday, and she's trying to raise the money to lay her daughter to rest. But I do have this link in the description, and if you do feel led to go and help out, I would appreciate it. I'm sure Michelle would too. Thank you so much.
And she did a beautiful video today, a celebration of Shannon's life. If you want to go see that and share that with Michelle.
So yeah, definitely send her lots of love, especially while we're in this moment of feeling that love. If we can sort of push it over and send it to her, I know she needs some at this time, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia, for being here. I have so much love for you and your family to me, and I just love having you around each time. It's just, I feel energized by having you here. So thank you.
Me too.
Me too. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys. I feel energized with you too. So it's just
Good. I'm glad.
win-win-win.
I'm glad. I'm glad you get something from it. And then we'll try not to be too greedy and maybe see you this summer. Having
Yes.
back this summer.
I'm sure there'll be lots more news the way it's going.
I'm going to go find those scientists in Berkeley, and you can knock on their door and go, what is this about quantum jumping with every death until the body is worn out and can no longer make the jump?
Yeah.
That's all I got. And it's like in all the science digests. So somebody
This
put it out
sounds
there.
a little bit too materially focused for my taste, but they're kind of on the right track. But I haven't read the study, so it's just the way
Nobody
it comes
has.
out.
It's
It
not
just sounds
available.
that way.
Yeah, it's like, is this real? It's just a news blurb. You know, if you follow the online news journals, you get a lot of little blurbs of could be happening, maybe not. You know, like I have a mystery for you guys that I'm going to send you by email, and then you can comment back to me and tell me what you think the answer is to this mystery. And I'll just tell everybody really quickly. It's about this new bright light coming to light the night sky by 2022. It's going to grow brighter and brighter and brighter, and then it's going to go away. Okay, so some of the articles by scientists are saying it is a collision from the year 0, where two neutrino stars collided, and it took 2,000 years for the light to reach us and then fade away again. And then scientists are saying we're about to have that collision. And a nearby collision of neutrino stars in the Milky Way galaxy will produce this light in 2022. So if I send that to you and Shane, you can see where each Science Digest and article says it's something different. Yeah.
Which is is exactly what we're talking about tonight. I love it.
Yeah. Maybe we can get our head around it. We'll see.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
cool. Love it.
Well, thank you
so
guys
much.
Thank you for being here, both of you. Lots of love and light to you guys, and thank you guys in the chat, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.